manifestations are within reach of you literally. If you're not experiencing those things, it's only because you cannot perceive it in your reality, not because it's not there. To perceive it in your reality, you become the object that vibrates in such a way that it forces the manifestation that matches that to show up in your life. Personally, understanding this concept has had a profound effect on how I intentionally create my life. William James, a pioneering American psychologist and philosopher born in the 1840s, created a theory that said if a person behaved as if they were a specific type of person, they would become that person. If you've been studying or using the law of attraction for any time, then you've probably heard that acting as if is a great way to manifest things intentionally. And decades of research has shown that this is accurate and applies to all aspects of our lives. And why is this as if principle so accurate? Because behaving as if we feel an emotion will create that genuine emotion because it produces real physiological changes, which in turn produces real vibrational changes. You may also have heard this before, but it's important to mention that our bodies don't know the difference between the thought of an event happening and an event actually happening. We physiologically process thoughts in the exact same way as we do actual events, and we can use this fact to our advantage to raise our vibration intentionally and match the reality of our choosing. But sometimes we feel far off from those positive feeling states that match our intended manifestations. And making the leap from feeling uncertain or lack or unhappiness to a much higher vibrational emotional state can seem like a daunting task. From an emotional scale point of view, we rarely move from a lower emotional feeling state to what is considered a higher emotional feeling state in an instantaneous way. When I realize that I'm experiencing a lower emotional feeling state and I'm ready to create something new, I know it's time to do a little work on my vibrational meter. This is not to say that it isn't a good idea to sit with some of these emotional states that are considered lower on the scale, process them, and allow them to flow when needed. However, when you're ready to shift out of that to create something new, it can be helpful to have a few tools to do this. So here's a simple process that I use to instantly shift my vibrational state when I'm experiencing emotions that I'm ready to move past. And this process helps me first get centered before I begin working on reaching the higher vibrational states that actually align with the experiences that I really choose to have. And I'll give you another process that you can use in just a moment to follow this one and get into true vibrational alignment with your manifestation. The first thing I do is create 2 columns on a piece of paper. I label the first column, Things I Like the Feeling of Thinking About. The second column is labeled, Things I Like the Feeling of Doing. Then I proceed to write down as many of these things as possible in these 2 columns as they come to mind. I also write out the feeling states that correspond with each of these things. For example, if I were to write down, I like the feeling of thinking about having dinner with my family, I would then list feeling states such as happiness, fun, and love. If I write down, I like the feeling of walking on the beach in the other column, again, I would write feeling states that correspond with that, such as peaceful, centered, and relaxed. So this process helps me to get really in touch with the beginning of shifting my feeling states into a more positive place, because I'm focusing on specific thoughts, experiences, and actions that align with those things that I enjoy, and I begin to create those feelings within me in doing so. I recommend doing this exercise for 10 or 15 minutes or longer if you can keep coming up with things to write down, in order for the second part of the process that I'm about to give you to work effectively in raising your vibration to a state that aligns with what you want to create. So I highly recommend going through this crucial part of the process first, and you'll see why in just a moment. So once you've used this process and you've become centered and you've started to produce a state that's more vibrationally aligned with things you choose to create, you only need a little more creativity to begin really lining up with those things. And that's what the second part of this process that I use will assist you with. So the next thing I do is I really hone in on the thing that I'm creating by discovering a few details about that. Specifically, I ask myself why I want to create a specific experience. The why is very important because it gets me in touch with the feeling state. Each experience that I choose to create in my life is because I can imagine somewhere within me how that experience will feel in having it. In other words, I can get into vibrational touch with that thing. For instance, when I want to have the experience of a vacation, I'm imagining a state of relaxation or fun or adventure. And if I want to experience those things, it means I'm not necessarily feeling them currently. So I ask myself, how can I create relaxation in my life now so I can align with creating more relaxation in my life for the future? This question leads me back to the list that I previously created. Where on my list did relaxation show up? The list gives me clues as to how I can get back in touch with those feeling states. So I now have the why for the manifestation experience, and most importantly, the how. And then I begin to find ways that duplicate those experiences from the list to create this genuine vibrational state within me. This is the fastest way I've learned to do this, and it works exceptionally well for me. Because we physiologically process thoughts in the exact same way as actual events, using these two processes is a great way to produce the feeling states or vibrational alignment that corresponds with the manifestations we choose to create. And when we intentionally create feeling states, we begin to perceive a reality that matches that. When this happens, we produce and reinforce beliefs that we are already experiencing these things. This then creates a dominant vibrational frequency that makes us the perfect match to create more of that. When we change how we think, we change how we feel. When we change how we feel, we change what we perceive and experience. It all starts from within. Emotions are energy in motion. And in the same way you can't tune into a specific radio station without turning the dial on the radio, you can't manifest your desires without shifting your emotional frequency to one that tunes you into the experience of that manifestation.